Reels are all about chapter 3 in the workbook, which is all about agreeing on how to disagree, how to deal with conflict. I'm sure that as you've spent the last several weeks talking through all those questions, previous questions, you realize that you probably have different ideas on a lot of things, and that's great. It can be challenging, but it's great. It's great to learn from other perspectives. So for the next 4 reels, we're just going to talk about some things to keep in mind as you're trying to develop healthy habits that will help you resolve conflict, because guess what? You're going to be disagreeing about stuff all the time, and that's okay. It's how we grow, and that's how we grow closer, and it's how we see each other more clearly. So let's start with today's off with thinking through a couple things. Number 1, how did each of your parents deal with resolving conflict? Because if you were shown really unhealthy ways to resolve conflict, you might turn to some of those things because you haven't seen anything different. And you might need to put in more effort in regard to figuring out how to argue in a healthy way and in a loving way. Conflict is not bad, contention is. So here's some things to think about. When you need to solve a problem, and be really honest, what are some of the strategies that you lean toward? Are you the kind of person who just wants to ignore it and hope that it will go away? Are you the kind of person who wants to talk through it and rehash until it makes sense? That's me. Are you someone who needs to go spend time alone and gather your thoughts? Or are you someone who's like, oh, stay with me and let's work it out. I don't want to be left alone. I mean, these are important things to know about each other. Do you hide your feelings because you don't want to come across as feeling weak? Can you use physical exercise to kind of help clear your head? Or do you just distract yourself with video games or scrolling through your phone so you don't have to think about the problem? Do you have a hard time with blaming others instead of taking accountability? Do you have a hard time apologizing when you make a mistake, or are you good at apologizing and giving true, real apologies, not the kind that, I'm so sorry, that was not my intention, I'm sorry you were angry? No, that's not a real apology. Also, do you happen to involve other people in conflict to create drama? Are you the kind of person who can keep your issues between you and the person they need to be resolved with? These are some things to think about, take accountability for, and understand about yourself before you move forward in learning how to resolve conflict. Okay, so I wanted to review a couple tips on how to communicate in a way that will strengthen your relationship through conflict. And there's a lot more details in the workbook, but we're just going to briefly go over kind of the headings of what they are to kind of get your creative juices flowing. So, number 1, it's really important to set aside time each week for a weekly check-in. If you're asking how you can serve each other, asking if there's anything you can improve upon, and you're both willing to work on yourselves, and you're kind of touching base about that each week, nothing's going to grow into a huge problem. Number 2, this probably is one of the biggest ones. When you are facing a problem, it's the two of you solving the problem. You are not pit against each other. You're not trying to prove one is right, one is wrong at all costs. You guys are a unit now, a union. You have chosen to cleave. So it's you against the problem that needs to be solved. We need to listen to understand, not to win. And really listen to try and have empathy and compassion for the other person's perspective and truly see it. Not just listening and waiting for them to shut up so you can get your 2 cents in. There's a lot more about that in here because that is something that I really struggled with and had to learn. We talked about last time considering how your parents dealt with conflict and how that might influence the way you do it and what changes you might need to make there. Also, giving it 3 days. If it's a little thing and it's just bugging you in that moment, and you can give it 3 days to see if it still bugs you then, that's a really great litmus test for if it was irritability or being tired or hormonal, or if it's actually something that needs to be resolved. If we are trying to look for the good in each other, complimenting each other, serving each other. That will help us stay grounded when we're dealing with a conflict. And then when you're dealing with a problem, set aside a time when you're not hungry and you're not exhausted and you're not stressed. Set aside a time to talk about it and tackle the problem together. Start with prayer. Ask the Lord to help you see each other and the situation clearly and with compassion before you move forward. All of those things can turn really big, angry emotions into more calm, reasonable perspectives before you deal with the issue. Here are a few questions from the conflict plan questions in the workbook that might be worth reviewing. So to discuss with each other, how do each of you prefer to work through problems? If one of you needs a moment to think, or if one of you really needs to talk it out, if one of you needs to kind of go calm down and get centered first, it's good to know each other's styles. If someone breaks the rules, meaning they lash out in anger, or they lose their temper, or they do something that makes the other person feel unsafe, they attack them or belittle them. So these are things that are not okay ways to treat each other. What are you going to do to course correct before that gets out of hand? And then kind of going over some deal breakers that you each have. Like, I know for me, infidelity is like, I don't think I could come back from that. That is something that I would really struggle with. I know that a lot of couples have worked through that and it's been okay. But for me personally, that would be really, really hard. So talking through what boundaries do we need to set in place so that never happens? Let's talk through those. And your partner may have some things that just like, this terrifies me. What can we do to avoid this? Talk through some of those things. All of these little skills and little practicing are going to help you when you hit your first curveball. And curveballs are not fun, but when you can rely on each other and you have some good skill set in place for resolving issues, it's going to be okay. Okay, and finally, we talked about this when we were talking about the triangle and our relationship to the Savior. The number one thing that will help us in resolving conflict is having us both be worthy of the Spirit and both be looking at things with an eternal perspective through an eternal lens when we're dealing with our issues. Because that 100% hurries and puts it in the right perspective, because it gives everything that might seem like it's driving us crazy. When you put it in an eternal perspective, you all of a sudden get a lot of clarity on just how much that particular issue matters. And sometimes it will matter a ton. It will be of huge eternal significance and needs to be dealt with. And sometimes it will be like, oh, I can probably let that go and I need to calm down a little bit. So keeping our relationship with the Savior strong as individuals and as a couple is one of the best gifts we can give to each other to help us when we're dealing with conflict and challenges in our marriage.